Welcome to the Leadership is Female podcast. Mallory LePage, Director of Global Partnerships at the Milwaukee Bucks. I am pumped to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So will you do your own intro? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes. So Mallory LePage, I work for the Milwaukee Bucks on the sponsorship side, director of global partnerships for the last 5 seasons, going into my 6th season, since we speak in seasons in the NBA, not years. And that's my day job. My post-work job is the vice president of empowerment for the Milwaukee Bucks Diversity Leadership Council.
Amazing. And we are going to dig into all of those things with your current spot in your career. But before we talk about that, we need to talk about the journey to get you where you are today. So how did you do it? Where did you get your start? And how did you get to this spot?
So I had a very unconventional road into sports. Growing up in the Detroit area, big Pistons fan. They won the championship when I was in high school. I always wanted to work in sports, but I had this misconception that you had to have a connection to get into sports, which maybe at the time that was true. Early 2000s, I thought that you had to know somebody that knew somebody to get there. Plus, being a woman trying to break into a very male-dominated industry was very, very intimidating for me. So my background is mostly media sales and sponsorship sales. After I left Michigan State, which only helped amplify my love for the game even more. After I left Michigan State, I had enough of the cold weather. Sick of walking across that campus every winter, cold, snowy day. And I promised myself I was moving to LA. So upon graduation, I moved to Los Angeles. I worked for a startup company and another out-of-home media company, got a lot of experience under my belt from the vantage point of a seller. It's funny when people ask me about sales and how I like it. I say I hate it. I didn't ever want to do sales. I never wanted to get here. That's not what I thought would happen. This will date me, but I thought I want to work for ESPN, the magazine, and work on multimedia. I didn't know that these positions existed. So I'm proud of the road that I took to get here, because while it was very difficult, it helped teach me about adversity, being independent, being self-reliant, being self-motivated, and just having really tough jobs along the way. It wasn't all glitzy. It wasn't championship teams. My least favorite job ended up being the most valuable job that I ever had. And my current boss loves to tell this story because it shows that if I could sell gas station radio, which I did for 6 months, I could sell NBA basketball. It's still really tough to sell NBA basketball, but you have to learn those valuable lessons to get you here. So I had a very unconventional road, and I absolutely loved every minute of it that got me here.
I love that story. And I think that the unconventional road is what makes the best sellers, because you may have gotten into it reluctantly, but I think a lot of us do. And you learn to sell so many different products when that wasn't your goal in the first place.
Exactly.
So gas station advertising to championship basketball, which did happen for you. But before we got there, after college at Michigan State, you mentioned you left the Midwest and moved to LA. That was your goal.
Yep.
And you lived there for 3 years. So as a fellow Midwestern girl, what did you learn about yourself and what you wanted in life throughout your time in LA?
I learned a lot. Moving to LA was obviously a goal that I had. I don't even think I knew what it meant. I just knew I wanted sunshine and palm trees. And I knew that there was another world out there outside of the Midwest. It was the best thing I could have done. So it taught me a lot of things about, like I said, becoming independent, but more importantly, understanding, and this is really important for somebody in sports, is understanding the world is much bigger than yourself. I think we so often get caught up in, especially even being at a team, you're constantly hearing about your team, that your market, this is our story, but you have to step outside of that vantage point sometimes. And that's why I love getting on the road and traveling and having meetings, because you start to understand, people aren't always thinking about what you are thinking about. So it gives you a really good perception of the world. LA is an incredible place, but living in Hollywood, reminded me of how quickly dreams can be achieved and how quickly they can be broken. And very tumultuous city. I was not in the entertainment industry, so I quickly learned I couldn't really offer anything to anybody. Everyone always, it's exactly as you would think. Everyone is trying to get a favor from somebody else. And it was before it was a sports town. The Lakers were in a lull when I was there. There was no football. It was a time that was really special to me. And it ended so that I could come back to the Midwest and start my career, which sometimes I think back on my time in LA and think I wish I would have stayed. Maybe I'll go back one day. But looking back on it, it's part of that journey. It's every stepping stone that gets you to where you're supposed to be. And it was exactly what I needed to do.
Yeah. And when you decided to leave, you went back to the Midwest and you went to Chicago.
Yeah.
And worked mostly in advertising and media. So the thread so far in your career, and actually what's continued today, was account management.
Yep.
So what are your keys to great account management that have helped you the most?
Yeah. And even going into Chicago, and it started off with a lot of account management on smaller sales, and before it was partnerships and sponsorships, and every position that I had started to give me a little bit of taste of, oh, this is a bigger sale, or this is a bigger, now it's a partnership. What does a sponsorship look like? All things that I didn't realize were preparing me for this, because again, I didn't know this role even existed. For me, with building a partnership, it's understanding the balance and being extremely patient. A lot of the times in sports, we see people come from ticket sales over to the sponsorship side. I think that's a little bit more of the traditional rule. The biggest thing that people need to learn is it's not transactional. Partnerships take time. I've had partnerships that have taken 2-3 years to develop. And you need to be able to understand how to build a relationship, build the trust, and understand what the partner wants. And I think so often we get stuck in, we need to sell this asset, or we need to hit this goal, or this is your goal. And you so quickly want to take a partner's objectives and fit them into your puzzle piece instead of listening to what they want, because eventually you'll get there. If you really listen to the partner, while obviously, of course, keeping your objectives in mind, you will get where you want to go, but you have to be really patient with it.
Yeah, it's so true. The sales cycle is so much longer. And
Yes.
like to your point, it's not that situation where you go in with the idea every time and then that's how the partnership forms.
Right.
Because you got to listen to the other side and the way that they see themselves fitting into your business.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's something I think about that I often forget, but a lot of my background in college was waitressing and bartending. And I would catch myself, and I think it's one of the best skills somebody can do when they're younger is it teaches you interpersonal relationships. It teaches you how to speak to people. It teaches you how to present. It's almost like public speaking, and just connecting with others that might not look like you, act like you, have the same beliefs, and you really have to understand how to build those connections. But I would catch myself when I was doing those jobs, thinking about what somebody might order before they would order it. Or this person looks like they might drink wine, or they might order a steak. And it's the same thing in sponsorship sales. You might have a preconceived idea of what somebody might want, but until you listen to them and understand them, you will never know. So never go into anything with any judgments.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, you did all these things. You went Michigan, LA, Chicago, and then in 2017, you moved to Milwaukee to work for the Milwaukee Bucks. What facilitated that jump into working in sports?
Jumping into sports, like I said, was something I never thought that I could do. And like I said, didn't think this job existed. I had no idea. I actually remember before I moved here sitting at a restaurant downtown Milwaukee when I was living in Chicago at the time. I came up to visit some friends, and it was when the news came out that Fiserv Forum, now named Fiserv Forum, this new Bucks arena was being built. And I had no idea this would come full circle in my life, but I remember having a conversation with a friend saying, I wonder how that works. Like how does the naming rights situation work? What do those numbers look like? Like how does this come together? Who pays who? And it's a really full circle moment that I often forget about. But I think that all of those moments that I had in my career brought me here, and prepared me in ways that I had no idea were happening at the time.
Isn't that crazy? Where it feels like your brain started working on getting you there before you even knew it was going to happen.
So weird.
And your role for 5 years was director, and your goal was to build and create corporate partnerships for the Milwaukee Bucks, Fiserv Forum, NBA 2K Bucks Gaming, NBA G League, Wisconsin Herd, and the non-basketball events throughout the Deer District. So I imagine you and your team creating this just enormous rate card of revenue generating opportunities and then going on sale. So tell us the keys to building and creating corporate partnerships, especially when you have all these diverse properties under your belt. You're thinking that Mallory is Milwaukee Bucks, but there's a lot more going on here.
There's a lot going on, and we're very fortunate that the Bucks own and operate everything. Again, had no idea that that would make such a big difference when I was joining a team. I didn't even think about the Bucks as an organization. Sorry, Bucks, before I started working there, because it was just never in my scope, right? Historically, they were not a good team. Grew up a Pistons fan, and the Bulls were in my backyard in Chicago. So I hadn't even thought about it. But coming into a situation where we had new owners that promised a championship, an MVP, a 30-acre entertainment district, those are lofty promises, to go after, and they did it all. And when you have that investment from the top and you have the belief from the top, it makes all of our jobs so much easier. And because we're able to sell across all of these different properties, it's very easy to have conversations with people. For a long time, in each season, our story changes, right? I just talked about that's the first story. When I first came in, my first year was in the Bradley Center. And that was our story. We're building. And then it quickly became Giannis is MVP. We have one of the best players in the NBA. We're championship contenders. To the NBA bubble was a big story, right? But we still had all these other things going on that we were able to sell at it's not all Bucks basketball. We own and operate the arena. So we have concerts, we have non-basketball events, we have private events, we have this massive entertainment district. We have all these other elements that you talked about. And now we're a championship team. So it's knock on wood, I've been very fortunate to see this massive trajectory while I've been here. So I've been really lucky to be able to be a part of that journey, and we're only going up from here. So it does make my job a lot easier.
Yeah, well, huge congratulations to you on two fronts. Your promotion to Director of Global Partnerships. That is amazing. Sending you a big high five.
Thank you.
From Reno, and also the 2021 NBA champions. And to your point, like the Bucks were never a great team.
Right.
I went to a few games at the Bradley Center when I was younger, and I lived back in the area, and it was just different, like growing up a Bulls fan and being a part of those championships and cheering for them. Like the Bucks felt different. Well, now you are on such a different playing field, and it's been just an incredible year. What was the experience like being in your role in 2021? And what's your favorite memory?
It was very gratifying because we felt like the year that the world shut down and the year we went into the bubble, that was supposed to be our year. Like we had the best season, the regular season record in the NBA. Giannis was doing so well. And then the bubble hit, and it was just like, talk about a bubble was deflating. We didn't do well. There was a lot going on in the world. We were all sitting at home watching these virtual games everywhere. And it was very weird. So the fact that we were able to come back and win was very surreal. Game 6, and knowing the Bucks culture, Bucks in 6. So the fact that we won in 6 games was insane. The game in Milwaukee was electric. We had almost 100,000 people outside. We had almost 20,000 people inside. Talk about just like being in this massive historical moment. You could feel the energy the whole game. I remember pacing around the arena, but then also kind of just going through the motions, doing your job, right? You're getting to the game, you have all your duties, you're meeting, you're seeing clients, you're visiting people, doing this, making sure these signs are up and this is happening. So you have this parallel thought process of, oh my gosh, we could win a championship tonight and I have to do my work. So it's a lot to balance. The final minutes, I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, this could really happen, but we know sports and anything could happen. I've been a part of a lot of games in life where weird things have happened in the last 7 seconds or less. So it was really those last couple seconds when we counted down that was very surreal. And it was an incredible moment then, but even in the days and the months to follow. But again, even with the parade and in the celebration, we were working, like especially our team, we're working with marketing to plan a parade 2 days later, and everything was squished because of COVID. So in a normal year, you have a couple more days and you have a couple more days between the parade. Not for us. Everything was compact because we played until late July last year. So they had to get everything done so we could have an off season. It was the ring ceremony where everything actually felt real. Seeing the players get their ring when we tipped off in October last season was really that final feeling of victory. And then the Bucks were incredible enough to give an employee ring ceremony shortly after when we all had our rings. So it's been a really cool experience, and I can't wait to do it again.
Do you wear your ring?
Very special occasions.
Big meetings.
Big meetings or big games. I do show my family because my name is on it. So I think that that's a really exciting moment for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome in your career?
I've had a lot. I think working in gas station radio was tough. I didn't even tell people what I did at the time. I've been unemployed several times because I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And that was in my mid-20s. So that's very character defining in itself, to be unemployed, live in a major US city and not be entirely sure how you're going to pay rent. But that's always helped me more than it's hurt me. I think you learn to support yourself and survive. And then as women, you have those natural instincts to survive. And that's why we have such great sales tools, because of our adversity. I think that coming to the Bucks and coming into the NBA, being a woman was really difficult at first. I struggled to find my way, find my niche. But eventually I found several different groups of incredible women that felt the same way and still feel the same way. And we still support each other. And we've formed groups throughout the pandemic. I have one group of women across the NBA that we talk to on a daily basis, and I haven't even met them all in person. I'm starting to. I met some at Summer League and some other NBA events, and we all come together and we support each other. And I think we're pretty dangerous in the NBA now because women are more open and more honest, and we want to see each other succeed. And I think that those around us are starting to pick up on that.
Yeah, well, speaking of women in these roles, you have served and do serve on some very important employee resource groups. You're the Vice President of Empowerment for the Milwaukee Bucks Diversity Leadership Council, and you were the peer-nominated co-chair of Milwaukee Bucks ERG Women's Initiative Network, WIN, which I love.
Thank you.
Who doesn't love winning? What is the purpose of these groups, and how do you serve the women of the Bucks and the greater Milwaukee community?
Yeah, Milwaukee, as you might know and others might know, is a very interesting city. Coming from Detroit, where there are so many different pockets of diversity, coming from LA and Chicago, Milwaukee is historically one of the most segregated cities in the country. We certainly don't want our workforce to represent that, and major kudos to Peter Fagan and the whole Bucks organization that our goal is to hire a diverse employee set that looks like our fans. We want to be able to understand all of our fans and what everyone's feeling. And that's been from the beginning. When Peter and new ownership came in. But after the murder of George Floyd, the organization knew we had to do something, knowing that Milwaukee is such a unique city and community. So the organization formed the DLC. The DLC thought we need to create some employee ERGs, some resource groups. Then that's when I was employed by my colleagues to serve as a co-chair on the inaugural co-chair group of the Women's Initiative Network. And in the last 3 or 4 months, I rolled over to the Diversity Leadership Council, which now my role, because I helped form that ERG from the ground up, we had to start everything from the ground up. So I now oversee all of the ERGs. We have 4 different ERGs now. We launched one this week. We're looking at adding a couple more. So we really just want to support the organization in terms of our diversity. We know every single person's diverse, right? Every single person has unique characteristics, and we want to help make that lasting impact. And we want to retain employees and make sure that they feel comfortable. But most importantly for me, I've learned using your voice is so important, but I understand not everyone's comfortable to do that. So my goal is to use my voice for others so that if they feel uncomfortable to speak up, I can do it on their behalf and I can help make a change.
That is an incredible goal. And I hear you, because like you said, everyone's diverse, but not everybody's comfortable using their voice at certain points or on certain topics. What are some of the big topics that you're tackling? Are you doing training? Are you doing programming? What does it look like? What are the goals?
Yeah, the 3 pillars within the ERG is myself with empowerment. And then we have a policy, because we understand that there are a lot of policies that need to be put into place. One of the aspects of the policy pillar that I think will be most outstanding is a traumatic playbook. So we have all these traumatic events that have happened in the last couple of years, big and small, local, national, global. How do we serve our employees? How do we help our employees get through these traumatic events? Do we have courageous conversations? Are we a resource? Do we provide mental health support? So we're creating a playbook, because we are constantly putting these positions where every situation is unique, but traumatic in its own uniqueness. So that's something that I'm really excited to see our team do. And then the last pillar after policy and empowerment is education. And that's where we'll see a lot of trainings come in, starting with and we've done a lot, but starting with our executive team in terms of embracing diversity, embracing change and conversations, and using your voice, because we know if it comes from the top, it will actually happen and there will be change. And we have really good buy-in from across the organization. We have incredible executive team members, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Oh, I love that. Have you added a bias training to your education?
We did.
I did one of those, and it was so enlightening.
It is enlightening. Even you think it's, we did a gender bias training. We've done all different types of training, but Win hosted a gender bias training, and there was things that I learned, and there's things I've learned from my peers. Even a good example is, and I'm sure we've all heard it as women, oh, I had no idea you actually liked sports, or you know anything about sports. But then there's a whole gender bias for men that it's the opposite, that people assume that they like sports, that if they work in the organization, or they assume that they played basketball, and it's a mind jumble to understand what all of that means, but it's enlightening.
Yeah, well, the one part about the bias training that was most surprising to me was it was the cross between affinities and biases. So you and I, right? Like when I reached out to you, you referred to the podcast. I was so excited to talk to you because we share that Midwestern bond. I was pumped. You lived in Milwaukee and couldn't wait to talk to you about it. And that is something that we share, the two of us, just like automatically, where we can find common ground.
Sure.
Well, what I learned is that in recruiting and hiring, that affinity can actually turn towards a bias, where I might be more likely to interview you more favorably because we started with something in common. So that was it was so enlightening, I think, for everybody on the call, because we had this thought about a bias being something like a negative thought that you might not be aware that you had, but it was a new way to think about it, sort of open your mind to possibilities of all the people that you were speaking to.
Yeah, we're also looking at a parenting bias, and that can serve both sides, right? For those that are parents and that are not, because it's so important, especially in sports. We created a parenting breakout group because there's so many people that are trying to juggle so much, and they need to be spoken to and understood and heard.
That is so interesting. I haven't heard of that before, but the minute you said it, I've been in interviews before when people have asked me about my family, and then how many kids that do I have, and if I have adequate childcare, and how would I be? I mean, it started to really cross the line where I'm like, this is probably going to be the last time we talk
Yep,
because you've already put this barrier up that I have
exactly.
that I have children and I might not be available for you 24/7.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, dang. Well, I mean, this is such important work, and I'm so excited that they've got somebody like you who is working so diligently to give people voices and train so that we can all be a more inclusive, empowered workforce that looks just like our fans.
Yeah, it's just one conversation at a time. It can change the world.
Yeah, well, we can't get to the final four questions without talking about Wisconsin just a little bit more. And I
Yeah.
first have to give a shout out up to the evolution of the Bucks as well, and how much the brand and the logos have really just leaned into Wisconsin, and that identity of
Mhm.
Wisconsin is tremendous.
Yes, we have. It's funny you say that because our CMO and our entire marketing team is very protective of our brand. You see a lot of NBA teams, a lot of NFL, NHL teams that have like themes each year for their brand. We keep things pretty close to brand because we believe so fiercely in keeping things authentic and not swaying too far from our color scheme, our pillars in the brand. So that's why you see things even with our jerseys. It's never too outside the brand, and that's intentional.
Mhm. Well, I mean, the amount of work and how spot on the brand identity came in its new evolution from
Right.
what it was when I was a kid is incredible. Like it embodies Wisconsin just completely.
And to be able to win in 6 games and just further the chant and the culture behind Bucks and Six is eerily amazing.
Yeah. Tell the audience what that means in case they are not familiar.
Sure. So years ago, Buck star Brandon Jennings, during a playoff series, was being interviewed in the locker room, which he was sitting on the sidelines during the championship game in the first row, and it was a very incredible full circle experience. I thought he was going to just like check in at one point. He was quoted, and we have the videos all over the place. Bucks are going to win, and it's Bucks and Six. It's Bucks and Six. And that just became this like rally cry for the entire Bucks nation. And to be able to lean on their superstar at the time, to be able to believe in, it doesn't matter how many we're down, like we're going to win in six. And it's really become part of the culture. And so maybe that was 2008 or nine. So to be able to come back over a decade later and win the championship in 6 games just gives me chills thinking about it.
Oh gosh, it's incredible. And it also just shows that attention to detail and attention to the stories that
Mhm.
you can extract from your players, from your fans,
Absolutely.
from your community, that really pulls through to make your brand so authentic and gives you those like goosebump
Yeah.
inducing moments.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay,
Absolutely.
so where's the best place to eat in Wisconsin? And what's one thing you want people to know about Milwaukee?
So my favorite restaurant is Good Kind. And I remember my friends that hears this will laugh because I'm constantly like selling it to everyone. Like, this is where you should go eat. This is where you should go. But it encapsulates Milwaukee perfectly because everything's locally sourced. It's a locally owned restaurant. It's one of one. The menu is ever changing, but in the best possible way. So it's super seasonal. And they're growing a lot of their herbs and vegetables right there on the sidewalk. It's in Bayview. Their drink menu and their beverage program is incredible. My husband and I helped support them throughout the pandemic by enjoying their weekly Tuesday burger nights, which it's a ever changing menu every Tuesday, only Tuesday for burgers, and they get super creative with it. And they also lean into supporting the Bucks. So sometimes they did like a Greek Freak burger. They'll do different. They'll switch it up a little bit, but it's amazing. And we love to sit out in their patio in the summer. And then what's the best thing about Milwaukee? Um, you know, thinking about it when we were talking earlier, I think it's just how easy of a life it is coming from, and maybe that's comparative for me, but coming from LA and Chicago, it's easy, right? I live so close to work. There's not a lot of traffic. You can show up at Good Kind without a reservation. There's things like that that just make life so much easier. But the people are amazing. Everyone's super hardworking. It's Midwest through and through. So you have your Midwest nice, but you have a strong, gritty city, just like our team.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you touched on that easy life. Like it's possible to have the career and the job you want without the things standing in your way every day that make life harder, like
Exactly.
traffic and too many people and having to live too far away because the cost to live
Right.
close is too high. So I think that that's just a wonderful way to shine a light on a really incredible city and that it is possible. You don't have to live in a specific place to achieve your dream in your career. You can find the right fit.
Absolutely.
All right. Final 4 questions. So what is your top piece of advice for women to start today so that they can level up tomorrow?
There's so many things.
Can be more than one. Okay. We
So
know
it's
you have
definitely
a
going
ton
to
of
be more than
advice.
one.
Yes. Let's go.
First, for me, it was finding your people and sticking with them. And that's not just in your personal life or professional life, it's everywhere, right? Like find your people at work that are going to support you. Find your people outside of work in your professional world, like you and I, that will support each other. And then make sure that your loved ones understand your demands, and they support you, because that's a big piece of it. I always say being in sales and dating is the hardest thing to do. And I've done it, but it's a lot of rejection. So you have to make sure you have the support around you and the people that love you that will lift you up. I think it's important to be passionate about what you're doing. I love basketball. I don't love some other sports. And I think it would be challenging to work in a sport that you're not super passionate about, because our jobs are very demanding. You are at these games, you are selling the team and the sport and understanding the ins and outs of the game. Again, not impossible, challenging, exciting, but it's important to be passionate about it. And in general, hard work pays off. There are no shortcuts. I think that, yes, you can get lucky here and there, but at the end of the day, if you work hard, it will pay off, but don't overwork yourself. I think going into COVID, we had this just grind work mentality. And it was, how am I am I at the office the latest? Let me visibly show you that I'm here working the latest, or how can I do this, this, and this? I do a lot. I have a lot on my plate between my day job and my post day job with the DLC. But that's because I have really good balance. I make sure I'm taking care of my physical health. I make sure I'm taking care of my mental health. I make sure I make time for those around me. But you have to have that balance and not to distract yourself. So that was a lot, but it's all very important.
It is all very, very important. And I'm so happy that you shared all of that wisdom. Okay. Where are you traveling to next?
So next Tuesday, my husband and I are taking our long-awaited trip to Italy for our wedding. We legally got married because the Bucks have amazing health insurance. So we had to do that first, and we didn't want to go through the embassy. So we are having our wedding celebration in Italy, right outside of Florence, a week from Saturday. So that's been a 2-year delay. So I'm very excited to get up in the air and be on our way there.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is your pump up song? I guess, like, what is the song that you can't wait to play at your wedding?
At our wedding, and this will be a sneak peek because I haven't told anyone our first dance song, but mostly because we didn't think of it until like a week ago. We had 2 years to think of all of these things. And of course, these things come up, at the last minute. So we can't wait to dance to Simply the Best, because we weren't sure what we wanted to dance to, but that's kind of our like feel good song. Everyone probably that watched Schitt's Creek remembers the moment where there was the acapella serenade of Simply the Best. And it's just kind of our feel good, like fun dance around the kitchen song. So we thought, let's just go for that and do that.
Oh, I love that. and you'll create such a cool memory
Yeah.
around that song.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, what is your favorite quote?
So my favorite quote is not from any great philosopher. Well, I guess it depends on your opinion of her, but from the one and only Peloton instructor, New York Liberty host, dog mom, now College Game Day host, Jess Sims. So for my fellow Peloton folks, how you do anything is how you do everything. And it is so true. It is so true. It haunts me when I'm running on the treadmill and she says it. It haunts me during a boot camp, but then it haunts me at work where it's like, nope, you have to finish this. You have to, you have to make sure this is done. You double check this. I'm really, really big on prepping for meetings, prepping for pitches. And it's so true. Like anything that you go into, whether it's personal, professional, you have to make sure you're prepared. And then how do you come out of it and how do you react to it? So it's kind of words I live by now.
So I can vouch for Mallory and her prep because she sent me notes on all of her questions before today's interview. And I totally agree with you on this quote being so haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I try to do something half-ass,
Yep.
it like pings me in the back of my brain. Like, no, you could do better than that. Yeah.
Yep. Go back and fix that.
Exactly. Well, this has been such an amazing interview. You have given us so much great information about your journey and all the lessons you've learned and all that you're putting into the future for your own career and for others. So thank you for sharing your voice on the Leadership is Female podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to do this a million more times. It was amazing.